When someone complains about the trash in the yard, I quietly clean it up at night. No one knows it's me. And I like that people think we have a secret good neighbor. I have a secret that I've never told anyone. When people in my neighborhood complain about the trash lying around the courtyard, I'm the one who sneaks out at night and cleans it all up. Nobody knows it's me. And the strangest part? I actually love that they think we have some kind of mysterious good neighbor. It all started about a year ago, after one of those long, exhausting days when I came home late from work. The sun was already down, and the courtyard was littered with plastic bottles, candy wrappers, and even a couple of broken glass jars. Everyone was grumbling. I could hear Mrs. Patterson from the second floor yelling at the kids who played soccer outside, accusing them of making a mess. The kids, of course, blamed the teenagers who hang around the corner store. The teenagers shrugged and swore it wasn't them. Basically, it turned into a community drama where nobody took responsibility, but everybody was annoyed. I remember standing there, listening to the arguments, and feeling oddly embarrassed. I mean, I don't even have kids, I barely talk to my neighbors, and I'm not exactly the type of person who goes around leading community projects. But for some reason, I felt guilty, as if I had personally contributed to the mess just by existing there. And that night, while I was lying in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about the trash. I pictured Mrs. Patterson fuming, the kids sulking, the teenagers laughing. And suddenly, I had this bizarre idea. What if I just clean it up myself? Not during the day, not in front of anyone, just silently, secretly, when everyone was asleep. So, at around midnight, I grabbed a pair of old gardening gloves, a trash bag from under the sink, and tiptoed outside. It was quiet, the kind of silence that feels almost too heavy, where even the rustling of leaves sounds suspicious. I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting some neighbor to poke their head out and accuse me of being up to no good. My heart was pounding as if I was doing something illegal. But the truth? It felt weirdly thrilling. One by one, I picked up every wrapper, bottle, and soggy piece of paper. The broken glass was the worst. I almost sliced my palm, but I managed to handle it without bleeding all over the place. After about half an hour, the courtyard looked spotless. I tied up the bag, tossed it in the dumpster, and stood there for a moment, staring at the clean ground. It felt like I had just pulled off some kind of secret mission, like a trash vigilante. And when I finally went back inside, I was smiling in the dark like a complete idiot. The next morning, the magic happened. I heard the neighbors buzzing with excitement. "Hey, did you see the courtyard? It's spotless. Who cleaned it?" Maybe the kids felt guilty. Nah, no way it was them. Maybe the city sent someone? Don't be ridiculous. The city hasn't cared about this place in years. And then someone, probably Mr. Rodriguez, the retired guy who loves conspiracies, joked, "Maybe we've got a guardian angel neighbor." Everyone laughed, but you could hear that tiny note of curiosity. Who could it be? That was the moment I got hooked. Instead of people arguing or ignoring the mess, they suddenly had this sense of wonder. A mystery. And somehow, I had created it. I didn't get any credit, of course, but I didn't want it. The secret was better. It was mine. Over the next weeks, the pattern continued. Someone would leave trash, people would complain, and then, like clockwork, the mess would disappear overnight. I became more organized with my little missions. I bought sturdier gloves, kept extra bags ready, even carried a small flashlight tucked in my pocket. Sometimes I'd wait until 1 or 2 in the morning, just to be sure everyone was asleep. I got good at moving quietly, avoiding squeaky gates and creaky steps. And each time, the aftermath was the same. The courtyard sparkling in the morning light, the neighbors buzzing with theories. One time, Mrs. Patterson actually left a note on the bulletin board that said, "To whoever is cleaning our yard, thank you. You're truly a blessing." I read that note 3 times in a row and felt this rush of warmth in my chest. It was absurd. Nobody even knew it was me, but it felt like they were thanking me personally. Of course, the funniest part is how far people's theories started to go. Mr. Rodriguez swore it was the work of a disgruntled janitor from the city, striking back against corruption. Mrs. Patterson thought it was the kids after all, secretly trying to make up for their behavior. The teenagers spread a rumor that there was some kind of yard ghost who couldn't stand litter. And me? I just sat there quietly, sipping my coffee, trying not to laugh. But here's where it gets complicated, and where the confession part comes in. The longer this went on, the more I started to crave that feeling. Not just the satisfaction of cleaning, but the thrill of sneaking around, the mystery of it all, the weird sense of power I got from knowing something nobody else did. It wasn't just about picking up trash anymore. It was about being invisible and yet leaving a mark. About shaping how people felt without them ever suspecting it was me. And then, well, something happened one night that changed everything. I'll get to that. So, here's where things started to spiral. For the first couple of months, my little midnight missions were harmless. Just me, a trash bag, a pair of gloves, and a sense of satisfaction no one could quite explain. But the more I did it, the more it became addictive. It wasn't just about cleaning anymore. It was about being the shadow everyone whispered about in the morning. I had become the phantom neighbor, the unsung hero of the courtyard. And I loved it. At first, I thought I could keep it casual, just a once-in-a-while thing. But soon, I found myself waiting for the slightest excuse to sneak out. A crumpled soda, can by the fence? Boom! I was outside at 1 a.m. A single cigarette, but tossed near the stairs. Guess who was out there crouching in the dark, scooping it up like it was radioactive material? Yeah, me. I even started timing my operations more carefully. Midnight was too risky. Some neighbors stayed up late watching TV. So I shifted to around 2 or 3 in the morning, when the silence was so deep you could hear the hum of the streetlights. I'd move like a ghost, bag in hand, every sense on high alert. The night air would feel heavy, the shadows darker, and even the sound of my own breath seemed too loud. But here's the weirdest part. The danger made it better. Every time I bent down to grab a candy wrapper, I'd imagine someone pulling back their curtain and catching me in the act. My heart would thump so loud I swore it could wake the whole building. Yet, no one ever saw me. Not once. Until one night, I thought I was caught. It was late, maybe around 3:15 a.m., and I was doing my usual routine, picking up the remnants of what looked like a mini picnic someone had decided to leave scattered across the grass. Plastic cups, greasy napkins, even an entire half-eaten sandwich. I was grumbling under my breath, trying to peel a slice of cheese off the pavement without gagging, when I heard it, a window creaking open. I froze. My flashlight clicked off immediately, and I crouched behind the dumpster, clutching a bag of trash like it was some kind of shield. My mind raced. If someone saw me, what would I even say? Oh, hi. Don't mind me. Just your neighborhood trash fairy? The absurdity almost made me laugh, but the terror kept my mouth shut. I waited, heart hammering, listening. A man's voice drifted out. It was Mr. Rodriguez, of course. He was muttering something about strange noises and ghosts. I held my breath until the window slammed shut again. Then, after a full minute of silence, I slowly stood up, wiped my sweaty palms on my jeans, and finished the job. The next morning, Mr. Rodriguez was on fire. He told anyone who would listen that he'd heard the ghost. It was rustling around the dumpster, he said dramatically. I swear it's real. Mrs. Patterson rolled her eyes. The teenagers laughed, but deep down I think they wanted to believe. And me? I sat on the bench with my coffee, trying not to burst into hysterical laughter. The man had almost caught me red-handed, and instead, he convinced himself it was paranormal activity. That was the first time I realized how far people's imaginations could go, and it only fueled me more. Soon, I wasn't just cleaning trash. I started improving things. If a bench was crooked, I'd quietly straighten it. If a flower bed was trampled, I'd fix the soil. Once, I even tightened a loose screw on the swing set. It was subtle, small things no one noticed right away. But when they did, the legend of the secret neighbor grew even bigger. One morning, I overheard a couple of parents saying, maybe it's some kind of volunteer from the city trying to inspire us to take care of the place. Another neighbor insisted it was definitely a woman, probably someone retired with too much free time. Meanwhile, I was barely holding back my grin. But here's where the story takes a darker turn, because the more I leaned into this role, the more obsessed I became. And obsession has a way of twisting good intentions into something strange. It started with me noticing little patterns, like who littered the most. There was this one guy new to the building who always smoked by the stairs and left his butts everywhere. I began to resent him. Every time I picked up his cigarettes, I'd mutter his name under my breath like a curse. Another family always left food wrappers near the swings, and each time I cleaned up after them, I felt a weird mix of superiority and irritation. Then came a night I took it too far. I was out around 2:30 a.m., collecting the usual trash, when I saw a pile of empty beer cans right near the front entrance. Something inside me snapped. It wasn't just trash anymore. It felt like a personal insult, like they were mocking the good neighbor on purpose. I stood there, fists clenched, staring at the cans, my pulse racing. And then, without even thinking, I did something I regret. I picked up the cans, climbed the stairs, and placed them neatly right in front of the door of the guy I knew had left them. Like, I arranged them perfectly in a little pyramid, as if to say, I know it was you. My hands were shaking the whole time, and when I tiptoed back to my apartment, I felt a rush of adrenaline so intense it made me dizzy. Part of me was horrified. What if he caught me on the security camera? What if someone saw? But another part of me felt powerful, like I wasn't just cleaning anymore, I was sending a message. The next morning, the courtyard was buzzing again. The guy came outside, saw the pyramid of cans at his door, and went pale. He kept looking around suspiciously, muttering under his breath. Neighbors whispered. Was it the ghost? Was it revenge? No one knew. And me? I was torn between guilt and the intoxicating thrill of having pushed the boundaries. That's when I realized this wasn't just about being a secret good neighbor anymore. I had crossed into something else entirely, something that scared me a little. But the story doesn't end there. Not even close. After the beer can pyramid incident, things started to change in a way I didn't expect. Until then, my secret missions had been kind of innocent, even fun. But leaving that little arrangement at my neighbor's door made me realize I had power. Not just the power to clean, but the power to unsettle people, to make them think twice about their actions. And let me tell you, once you taste that kind of invisible influence, it's hard to stop. For a few days, the Beer King guy was on edge. I catch him glancing nervously around the courtyard, smoking less often, sometimes even hiding the cigarette, but's in his pocket instead of tossing them on the ground. I'd never seen him look so cautious. That's when it hit me. Fear can do what guilt never does. And I had become the source of that fear. It was thrilling. Too thrilling. That week, the neighbors kept whispering about the phantom. Mrs. Patterson was convinced it was a woman. Mr. Rodriguez doubled down on his ghost theory, claiming he'd heard strange footsteps again at night. The teenagers, of course, turned it into a game. They dared each other to stay out late and summon the ghost by leaving a candy wrapper on the ground. The next morning, when the wrapper was gone, they freaked out. And me? I sat at my kitchen window at 3 a.m., sipping coffee, watching them run off screaming after their prank. I almost laughed so hard I spilled the mug. But behind the humor, there was something darker building inside me. Because now, it wasn't just about keeping the courtyard clean. It was about control, about shaping how people behaved without them ever knowing who was pulling the strings. One night, I noticed that the flower bed near the entrance was filled with trash again. Same family as usual, the one with kids who always left snack wrappers everywhere. Normally, I just clean it up, but this time, I wanted to send a message. So I carefully gathered every single wrapper, folded them neatly, and left them stacked on their windowsill. The next morning, the mom was furious. I heard her scolding her kids in the hallway, her voice sharp and panicked. If I ever see you throwing trash again, you're grounded for a month. The wrappers had done more than my cleaning ever could. And for the first time, I felt something I wasn't sure I should enjoy. Satisfaction mixed with a touch of cruelty. That was the beginning of what I started to call, in my head, the escalation. See, cleaning had become routine. Too routine. The thrill wasn't enough anymore. I needed stakes. I started pushing myself to take bigger risks, to do things that felt more daring. One night, I climbed over into the locked shed behind the courtyard just to fix a squeaky hinge. Another time, I crept into the playground at 4 a.m. to retie the swings because the knots looked loose. Every time I did something like that, the risk of being caught skyrocketed, and that danger was like fuel for me. The pounding in my chest, the sweat on my palms, the quiet rush of adrenaline. It was addicting. I wasn't just the good neighbor anymore. I was the shadow that haunted people's routines, the silent presence no one could explain. But of course, when you play with fire long enough, you're bound to get burned. It happened one Friday night. The teenagers had gathered near the courtyard, blasting music and tossing bottles around like they owned the place. I watched from my window, seething. It wasn't just litter, it was chaos. And I couldn't stand it. At around 3:30 a.m., when the last of them stumbled off, leaving a battlefield of cans and trash behind, I snapped on my gloves and headed outside. But this time I wasn't calm. I was furious. I scooped up bottles, muttering curses under my breath, the plastic crunching like bones in my hands. My anger made me careless. Halfway through, I heard it. Footsteps. I froze. My flashlight beam darted across the courtyard, and there, standing at the edge of the shadows, was someone. A figure. Not Mr. Rodriguez. Not Mrs. Patterson. Someone younger, tall, wearing a hoodie. My stomach dropped. They didn't say a word. Just stood there, watching me, the dim glow of a phone screen lighting their face. My blood ran cold. For the first time, I wasn't invisible anymore. I panicked. Without thinking, I dropped the bag of trash, bolted across the courtyard, and slipped back inside my building. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would explode. I locked the door behind me and pressed my back against it, gasping for air. The next morning, the courtyard was a mess. The first time in months, I hadn't finished the job. People were annoyed, confused. "Where's the ghost now?" They joked. But my mind wasn't on their chatter. My mind was on the hooded figure. Had they recognized me? Were they going to tell? For days, I couldn't relax. Every time I walked past the courtyard, I felt eyes on me. Every time I heard laughter in the hallway, I was convinced it was about me. My secret, my power, suddenly felt fragile, exposed. And yet, part of me was exhilarated. Someone knew. Someone had seen me. And instead of ruining everything, it made the game even more dangerous, more intoxicating. I started to wonder, what if the figure wasn't planning to expose me? What if they were curious, maybe even impressed? That thought consumed me. I found myself waiting at the window late at night, hoping to see the hooded figure again. I wanted them to show up, to watch, to silently acknowledge the secret between us. I wanted an audience. But weeks went by, and nothing happened. No one confronted me. No one pointed fingers. It was like that night had never happened. Except, of course, I couldn't forget it. Not for a second. And then, one night, I finally saw them again. The figure. Same hoodie. Same silent presence. Standing at the edge of the courtyard, watching. This time, I didn't run. But what happened next? Well, let's just say it took this whole phantom neighbor thing to a level I never expected. The second time I saw the hooded figure, I knew everything was different. The first encounter had been raw panic, a sudden exposure that left me shaken. But now, there was no fear. There was anticipation, curiosity, maybe even a little excitement. I was crouched by the swings, scooping up candy wrappers when I felt it, that heavy, electric sensation of being watched. I turned my head slowly, flashlight off this time, and there they were. Same silhouette, same stillness, leaning against the lamppost at the edge of the courtyard. We stared at each other across the dark. No words exchanged. No movement except for the faint sway of their hood in the wind. For a few seconds, I thought they might step forward, reveal themselves. But instead, they just stood there, watching. And for some reason, I kept cleaning. My hands shook, but I forced myself to keep going, bagging the trash as if nothing was unusual. Maybe I wanted to prove something to them, to myself, that I wasn't scared anymore. That I owned this role, this secret identity. When I finally tied up the bag and tossed it into the dumpster, I looked back toward the lamppost. The figure was gone. I should have been relieved. Instead, I felt a strange emptiness. Like I'd lost a chance at, what exactly? Connection? Recognition? Over the next few nights, I couldn't stop thinking about them. Every creak of a floorboard, every flicker of movement in the shadows made me think they were back. Sometimes I'd even linger outside longer than necessary, pretending to adjust the benches or rearrange the flower bed, just to see if they'd show. They didn't. Until one Thursday. It was raining lightly, the kind of drizzle that makes the pavement glisten under the streetlights. Most people would have stayed inside, but not me. Trash doesn't care about the weather, and neither did I. I pulled on my hoodie, gloves stuffed in my pocket, and slipped outside. Halfway through collecting soggy paper cups, I saw it again, the hooded figure. But this time closer, not at the edge of the courtyard, but standing right by the playground fence. Watching me. My throat went dry. My pulse spiked. I straightened slowly, clutching the trash bag like a shield. You can see me, can't you? I whispered, though my voice barely carried in the drizzle. The figure didn't answer, didn't move. That silence was worse than words. It felt loaded, like they were choosing to let me squirm. I thought about bolting back to my apartment, locking the door, pretending this was just another hallucination of paranoia. But something inside me refused, so I took a step toward them. Then another. My sneakers squished against the wet ground, each movement painfully loud in the quiet. Finally, I was just a few feet away. My heart was hammering so hard it felt like it might burst out of my chest. And then, finally, they spoke. "You're the one, aren't you?" The voice was low, calm, almost amused. Definitely male. The words sent a chill through me. Not because they were threatening, but because they were true. No denial could save me now. I swallowed hard. What do you mean?" He tilted his head slightly. "The ghost. The phantom neighbor. That's you." I wanted to deny it, to laugh it off, to say he was imagining things. But my mouth betrayed me. "And what if it is?" I blurted, the words tumbling out like a challenge. That was the moment the power dynamic shifted. Instead of me being the invisible presence controlling the neighborhood, suddenly he had the control. He knew my secret, and yet he didn't look angry. He didn't look like he wanted to expose me. In fact, he almost looked impressed. "You've got guts," he said finally, a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Creeping around at night, cleaning up everyone else's mess. That's something." I didn't know what to say, so I just stood there, drenched in drizzle, my trash bag sagging in one hand. "Relax," he added, pulling his hood back slightly. He was young, maybe mid-20s, a little older than me, with sharp eyes that glinted in the lamplight. "I'm not going to tell anyone. Your secret's safe." The relief that washed over me was so strong, I almost laughed out loud. But it was mixed with something else, a strange thrill. For the first time, someone knew. Someone saw the real me, the shadow behind the legend. "Why?" I asked cautiously. "Why wouldn't you tell?" He shrugged. "Because it's entertaining, and maybe because I respect it. You've turned something stupid, like picking up trash, into an urban myth. That's impressive." My cheeks burned, though I wasn't sure if it was embarrassment or pride. Nobody had ever put it that way before. And that night, something shifted. I wasn't just cleaning for the sake of mystery anymore. I was performing. Not for the neighborhood, but for him. From then on, the hooded figure, his name, I later learned, was Alex, started showing up more often. Not every night, but enough that I could sense when he was there. Sometimes he'd just watch silently, leaning against the fence like before. Other times, he'd make little comments, teasing me about being the Batman of sanitation, or asking if I'd started charging rent for the clean courtyard. I should have hated it. He was intruding on my secret world, piercing the veil of invisibility I'd worked so hard to maintain. But instead, I found myself craving his presence. The silence wasn't so lonely anymore. The missions felt less like chores and more like collaboration, even though he never lifted a finger. But here's where things got complicated. Because the more Alex appeared, the bolder I became. One night, after cleaning, I confessed to him about the beer-can pyramid. He laughed so hard he nearly doubled over. Another time, I admitted I'd stacked snack wrappers on the neighbor's windowsill. He shook his head, grinning. "You're not just cleaning anymore. You're sending messages." And he wasn't wrong. The line between helpful phantom and vengeful ghost was blurring fast. And Alex? He wasn't stopping me. If anything, he was encouraging it. One night, he even suggested it. If you want to really freak them out, you could. And then he laid out an idea so wild, so mischievous, that I couldn't stop thinking about it. I won't tell you what it was just yet, but let's just say it was the first time the phantom neighbor's actions went from harmless mystery to something that could actually scare people. And the worst part? I wanted to do it. Alex's idea sat in my mind like a spark waiting to ignite. Until then, all my little messages had been subtle. Wrappers on a windowsill, beer cans stacked at a door. Petty, maybe a little creepy, but still harmless in the grand scheme. Alex's suggestion, though, was different. It wasn't just about cleaning or correcting behavior. It was about creating fear. Imagine, he'd said, his eyes glinting under the lamppost, if one morning they all woke up to find something unnatural. Not just a clean courtyard, not just little hints, but something that made them question reality. I asked him what he meant. He just smirked. You'll figure out. And I did. The following week, I planned my boldest mission yet. I collected trash over several nights, wrappers, bottles, newspapers, carefully sorted and stored in bags in my apartment. Then, at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday, I dragged it all back out. But instead of tossing it, I arranged it, carefully, deliberately, into a massive, almost ritual-like circle in the center of the courtyard. Bottles stood upright like little sentinels. Wrappers formed patterns like symbols. Newspapers fluttered like offerings. By the time I stepped back, sweat dripping down my back despite the cold, the courtyard looked less like a neighborhood mess and more like a crime scene. Or maybe a seance. Alex appeared, right on cue. He let out a low whistle. "Damn," he said softly. "You really went for it." I nodded, my chest heaving. "Do you think it's too much?" He grinned. "No such thing as too much." The next morning, chaos. Absolute chaos. I stayed hidden behind my curtains, watching the neighbors trickle outside. Mrs. Patterson gasped so loudly I heard it through my closed window. The kids were wide-eyed, whispering about witches. Mr. Rodriguez, of course, declared it was undeniable proof of paranormal activity. A ritual, he hissed, performed by the ghost at night. The police were even called. I nearly choked on my coffee when I saw 2 officers poking around the courtyard, scribbling notes, clearly baffled. Of course, they didn't find anything illegal. Just weird and unexplainable. For days afterward, the courtyard buzzed with tension. People avoided going out after dark. Some neighbors even started locking their windows, as if the phantom might slip inside. And me? I should have felt guilty. I should have felt like I'd gone too far. Instead, I felt more alive than ever. But here's the thing about secrets. They're never stable. Once someone else knows, once you share that secret with another person, you lose control of it. Alex started to change. At first, he was just an observer, a confidant, the only one in on the game. But soon, he wanted more. He pushed me, encouraged me, whispered ideas that grew darker each time. What if you left fake blood by the dumpster? What if you rearranged the trash to spell out words? What if you made them think the phantom was angry? At first, I laughed it off. But the more he talked, the more those ideas wormed their way into my brain. And late at night, when I was crouched in the courtyard with my gloves and flashlight, I started imagining them. The thrill of pushing the story further. The thrill of seeing the neighbors' fear intensify. That's when I realized Alex wasn't just watching me anymore. He was using me, feeding my obsession. One night, I confronted him. "Why are you doing this? Why do you care so much?" He shrugged, but his smirk was colder this time. "Because it's fun. Because I like seeing how far you'll go. And because, honestly, I think you like it too." I didn't answer. Because he was right. Still, something about the way he said it made me uneasy. For the first time, I wondered, who exactly was Alex? He didn't live in my building. Nobody else seemed to know him. He only appeared at night, only ever in the courtyard. And slowly, an idea crept into my mind that I couldn't shake. What if Alex wasn't just an observer? What if he was orchestrating me, the same way I was orchestrating the neighborhood? That thought kept me awake at night. And then came the night, everything finally unraveled. It was raining again, heavy this time. I slipped outside, gloves damp, trash bag in hand. But when I reached the courtyard, I froze. The trash was already arranged, bottles stacked into a pyramid, wrappers spiraled into patterns. I hadn't done it. My blood ran cold. Then from the shadows, Alex stepped forward, hood pulled low. "Took you long enough," he said casually, as if he'd been waiting for me. I stammered. Did you do this?" He smirked. "What? You thought you were the only phantom in town?" My chest tightened. My hand shook. In that moment, I realized I wasn't in control anymore. Maybe I never had been. Maybe Alex had been here from the start. nudging me, shaping me, until I became exactly what he wanted, a partner in his twisted game. The next morning, the courtyard was chaos again. Neighbors panicked. The police came back, and whispers spread like wildfire. But this time, I couldn't take pride in it. I wasn't the sole architect of the legend anymore. Alex had claimed a piece of it. And that's where I'll leave you. Because to this day, nobody knows the truth. Not about me. Not about Alex. Sometimes I wonder if Alex was even real, or if he was just the part of me I'd unleashed, the darker half that wanted to go further, to scare, to control. Either way, the phantom neighbor is no longer just one person. The myth has grown bigger than me, bigger than Alex, bigger than the courtyard itself. And I don't know how to stop it.